It's NugLife Radio, a higher level of education. Call 855-456-7625 or like our page on Facebook.com/NugLife to receive full benefits of the NugLife.
So what, we get drunk, so what, we smoke weed, we're just having fun, we don't care who sees, so what, we go out.
Welcome, you're listening to the NugLife Radio Show, the first cannabis education show to ever be syndicated in the United States, that is America. We are a cannabis counterculture education, a higher level of education. I am your host. I am Medicinal Michael. I'm a 420 comic, cannabis enthusiast, and my co-host today, Dr. Kelly.
Oh, Mike, how are you today?
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Well, I guess I introduced myself at this point. I'm Dr. Wayne Kelly. I practice medicinal medicine, or cannabis medicine. I've been doing it for 6 years, and we've seen about 14,000 patients, Mike. Been in practice 30 years, and I also specialize in opiate addiction.
You are the expert of experts, and we are so appreciative to have you with us hosting on the NugLife Radio Show. We are now validated and happy to be so. We do have a great show today, action-packed as usual. What we have is Joe Grumbine. He's the founder of the Human Solutions. The Human Solutions is a company that is put forth to help medical marijuana and marijuana people who have been wronged or in some way by the government. They are not a legal company, but they can give you the advice to point you in the right direction. We also have the 420 comic, Jeff Peterson. He is branded and one of the first 420 comics, almost one of the first entertainers to ever brand himself for pro-cannabis awareness. We're very happy. We have a lot of questions for him, and we want to know where we can see him. We're the NugLife Radio Show. You can listen on NugLifeRadio.com. We have a live forum there, and we're going to have a great show. First, we're going to talk about with the Dr. News, all kinds of great stuff. Right now, there's a man in Colorado serving 1 year for cakes laced, he served a 1-year-old, big difference, cake laced in marijuana. A Chicago man was arrested on Sunday after purposely giving a woman and her 1-year-old child a chocolate laced with marijuana. These are kind confectionaries, I believe they're called. They're around here a lot. This is a piece of chocolate. It's delicious if you're over 18, Doc, and exactly. Very potent. Almost cruel, I would think, to give to a 1-year-old.
I agree completely.
They haven't sentenced him yet, but he is in jail on child endangerment, abuse, assault, and everything else that is bad about drugging children with cannabis.
I couldn't agree more. Cannabis is not for children, and I mean children is those individuals under 18.
Yeah, if you're 16, 15 years old and you're still in high school and you're still working on your future, you don't have the stresses that we have after being alive 30, 40 years. So relax, focus on what's important, and then maybe you can enjoy yourself and try out alcohol and all the crutches that make us a great country that we are.
Right. Well, when you're under 18, your brain is still developing, so it's best to stay away from anything that changes your psychic and emotional state, in my opinion. So I certainly do not advocate cannabis or any other drugs if they can be avoided for people under 18.
Well, what would be the worst case? Like, let's say I started smoking at 15 years old. Is there something that I may have affected unknowingly?
Well, maybe you're the funny, amusing guy you are because you started at 15. I don't know, but it's not something that I recommend. I think your brain should develop naturally without substances. And however, of all the substances available to teenagers, cannabis is probably one of the most benign one. I'd rather see a 16-year-old experiment with cannabis and alcohol.
Absolutely.
Though I prefer to see them experiment with nothing.
Yeah, experiment with a math book, kids. That's what's fun, and that's what's going to keep you getting to a lifestyle that you can play hard because you worked hard now. Also in the news, kind of goes hand in hand. Studies show pot smoking and high IQs are now linked. A Canadian research testing 39,000 people over a 30-year period. That's how you do a medical marijuana study right there. 39,000 people, and it's determining that they're testing them when they're children, 30 years ago, their IQ levels, a bunch of kids on an unrelated test, and now that they're all at a certain age level, 30, I'm guessing, they're testing them again, and all the high IQ kids are all pot smokers. They're saying that their brains are so full of knowledge and information that they are genetically almost seeking out cannabis to kind of de-stress themselves and slow everything down.
That's really interesting. And I found that to be particularly true with ADD or ADHD young adults or adults, that they focus much better. I've been told many times that it's cannabis that's gotten me through school, through college, because I could sit down and focus where if without the cannabis, I couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate. So I'm an advocate of that, and I think cannabis is one of the real miracle drugs for ADD or ADHD, and that's probably the only category, or one of the only categories, where it is applicable for young people under 18. Unfortunately, we can't do recommendations and promote that because of the laws. But
did they have, is ADHD, that's one of them new restless leg syndrome diseases? Was that even recognized back then?
No, it's been around for decades and decades.
They're just now promoting it because of the drugs, I guess.
Well, the kids diagnosed with it are increasing, and we're not sure why. It could be lots of things, but it sure is in cannabis. Just like there's an increase in autism. We're not really sure exactly why that is, but
probably all the synthetics that we're eating and the preservatives and all the crap they're throwing into our food. Thanks, McDonald's.
That's one of the theories, and you can think of McDonald's food if you want as kind of a drug itself, really.
Here's another study in the news. Speaking of McDonald's, I'm loving these segues today. Couple claims McDonald's put pot in their burgers, leading to police investigation. Yay, McDonald's. Finally a Happy Meal that lives up to standard.
That's why I'm starting to enjoy McDonald's more. God.
And this isn't a corporate thing. This isn't like somebody at McDonald's is like, hey, you know how we're really going to sell some of these French fries? We're going to add a quarter ounce to every cheeseburger because that would make them more expensive. This was actually just one gentleman behind the register. It doesn't give his name, I'm sure, because he's under 18. Having a little fun. I'm guessing
sprinkling the oregano on the McDonald's burgers, hey?
I'm guessing he probably did it to a lot more people, but only one couple actually complained. Yay, McDonald's. Finally, the food has something healthy in it. We appreciate that. The DEA seized 250 pounds of hemp seed, now holding it hostage. This is in Italy, sent Kentucky, 250 pounds of hemp seed to the bluegrass state, looking for this new strain. It's called Charlotte's Web. This is an extremely high. Have you heard of this already?
Of course, yeah.
And I'm still new to it, but maybe you can give a better explanation. It's like a high CBD strain.
It's a high CBD strain, and it's...
What?
What's CBD?
CBD is cannabinoids.
It's cannabinoids.
And they are one of the main cancer-fighting and just the really one of the most important of the 400. Only 5 they're actually doing research on. But this seems to be the number one. And if they could figure out how to grow a higher CBD cannabinoid strain, the potential for curing is going to be massive. Where you're only ingesting just a small amount. You don't have to refugee from your state to get something that's going to be effective and made by, some 22-year-old kid in his closet.
It seems to have the most therapeutic benefits. I mean, I've heard this a lot from particularly elderly patients who have severe arthritis, and they're able to get high CBD content cannabis or edible products, and the reports are that it gives them tremendous amount of relief. So
I always thought it was the THC, personally, because you hear the THC is the one that they, that's promoted the most, I guess.
Well, that's the part that gets you euphoric.
That's the fun side effect.
That's the side effect. From the medicinal medical standpoint, the side effect is the euphoria. It's the medicinal effects on pain and insomnia, anxiety, and all those stress-related illnesses that cannabis really shines therapeutically.
That is fantastic. We have a great show coming up, an incredible lineup. We still have Joe Grumbine from the Human Solutions. We still have Jeff Peterson, the 420 comic, coming in. We have a lot of great stories in cannabis news. We are the NugLife Radio Show. We are a high level of education, and I am Medicinal Mike, and we're hosted with the incredible Dr. Kelly. We are the #1 source for all your cannabis news, so make sure you stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Be right back with more enlightenment.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong. You're listening to NugLife Radio.
It's NugLife Radio, a higher level of education. Call 855-456-7625 or like our page on Facebook.com/NugLife to receive full benefits of the NugLife.
Swam to China and he sell you South Carolina, then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
And we're back, the NugLife Radio Show, a higher level of education. I am your host, Medicinal Mike, Cannabis 420 comic and cannabis enthusiast. I love this stuff. We are an education show for the cannabis counterculture community, and we are here with Dr. Kelly.
Oh, Mike, this segment, I thought we'd talk about the safety of marijuana.
Very important.
You think so?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff or even garbage in the news about it being dangerous now as the cannabis community is moving forward, proving that it's one of the safest substances out there, which I believe it is.
Set up a brick wall against us gaining any progress.
So I think the best way to think about cannabis is to try to put it in context of other drugs and medications. I mean, our culture is up to our neck in the ability to take substances that alter how we feel and how we deal with stress, whether it's fatigue, whether it's anxiety, depression, insomnia. We are offered everywhere we go hundreds of products. You can go to any AM, PM, and I will guarantee you there are half a dozen products and they're more dangerous than cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's energy drinks with people who have had heart attacks because it shoots up their blood pressure. You can think of all the junk food as a drug in itself. We have an epidemic of diabetes in this country. So, and I'm not even mentioning cigarettes and alcohol. And then there's the pharmaceuticals. So when I talk to people about cannabis, I like to put it in context of the pharmaceuticals and understanding that there are really different categories of pharmaceuticals. There are drugs that really cure things. Antibiotics. If you have an infected toe, you want to take an antibiotic.
Absolutely.
Sure. Chemotherapy agents can cure cancer, or there are other drugs that can at least ameliorate the various diseases, if not cure them. And that's one category, and those are the most important category of drugs. Secondly, there are the drugs that prevent disease. There is the drugs that we take to lower cholesterol, to prevent heart attacks. There's the drugs we take to control diabetes, drugs we take to lower the blood pressure.
These are the beneficial.
And they are drugs that prevent risk factors, really. Cholesterol is a risk factor. High blood pressure is a risk factors. And those are good drugs. They're important, so not all pharmaceuticals are bad, right? The third category is really the one that is the biggest one and the one that makes the most money for the pharmaceutical industry. And that's the drugs that control symptoms, how we feel. And we're talking about, first off, opiates, any pain medication, anti-inflammatories. We're talking about the benzos, which is Ativan, Xanax, Valium.
Are opiates the same opiates that they use to actually put in street drugs? Is that the same thing they're using to make these pharmaceutical drugs?
Whether you call it heroin or methadone or Percocet or Vicodin or Norco, you're talking about the same drug.
So with the proper marketing package, a street drug could become a successful symptom drug.
Right. And just on CNN recently, actually, I heard that, it's now considered an epidemic on the national news. Deaths in this country from prescription drugs, particularly the opiates. 120,000 people died last year from prescription medications. You know how many people died from cannabis, Mike?
How many?
I mean, documented that we know ever?
0.
I think 0. There's been no documented cases of deaths from cannabis.
I don't hear a lot on the news about the pharmaceutical. I mean, you always hear the lawsuits that come out after with all the side effects and everything, but I never actually hear anything about people like somebody died from taking Villator or the boner pill that makes you smile.
No, this doesn't hit the news. Mike, imagine, let's say we had a table, a big, long, flat table, and on one, and we wanted to put drugs or substances that people put in their body to control, to help them feel better, all right? And on one end of the table is the most dangerous drugs, like the opiates, and on the other end is the most benign, right? So I would put cannabis way down at the benign end of the table, along with pretty benign energy drinks. And like I said, I would even classify fast food to some extent, junk food, as a type of drug, because you take it to feel better.
I would like to sit at the end of the table with the cannabis and the French fries, please.
They're the French fries and the cannabis. And then there in the middle, there are drugs that control how we feel, like the anti-inflammatories, for instance, like the Motrin and naproxen. They make us feel better, but I've heard there's been up to 7,000 deaths in the U.S. last year from those categories of drugs. But they're considered, you can buy them on any drugstore or AM/PM shelf.
That's what I was thinking. If they're killing people, even aspirin, I hear of people overdosing on. How come they're not prescription needed to obtain these medications?
Well, I think it's political and financial. I mean, what I'm saying is that it's these categories of substances that generate the most money in the economy and for the pharmaceuticals, not the drugs that cure people or prevent major risk, but the drugs that change momentarily how you feel. And that's why they're on all the shelves. And if you think about it, we have hundreds of substances and drugs and stuff out there that people can take. And my point is simply that cannabis is way down at the benign end of that. Any way you cut it, any study you look at, cannabis is one of the most benign things you can take to deal with the effects of stress, depression, anxiety, insomnia, fatigue.
And this is all papered research at this point. Or are they still doing the new cannabis studies?
I think we've had the longest clinical trial of cannabis of any substance. I think it's like 4,000 years.
Right.
And it's been used for this long.
Nobody's writing down the results is the problem.
Yeah, maybe I think the Egyptians did.
Really,
actually.
Just give us another 100 years. We're just going to try out this new strain. We'll get it.
Right. So I'm just saying, my point is that look at cannabis in the context of the fact that we are a drug culture. And a drug culture is not some guys in dirty shirts sitting in a room smoking a joint. The whole culture is a drug culture.
And if you're just listening right now, this is the NugLife Radio Show, and we're listening to Dr. Kelly spread the knowledge that is cannabis to destroy the stigmas that you are hearing out in your everyday world. And we're discussing the safety of cannabis and how it is versus prescription medication. And we're covering now that Dr. Kelly is letting us know that the marijuana is at the benign end of the table next to my French fries and onion rings.
Well, maybe even a little safer.
You think actually that fast food is going to be safer than medical marijuana, especially with that Super Size Me movie that came out where the guy ate it for 30 days?
No, I mean, I think the cannabis is probably safer in the long run than someone who's addicted to fast food. He eats a lot of it, for sure.
Oh, no, I agree. Absolutely. So this is your medical professional right here, your cannabis doctor, Dr. Kelly, and he's hosting with me today. We're going to be here every day for you. This is the NugLife Radio Show. We are a higher level of education, as I'm sure you're seeing right now. We're also the first syndicated medical marijuana, recreational, regular marijuana. We don't say recreational anymore, Dr. Kelly. We're learning that.
Thank you very much.
And remind the audience real quick why we don't say recreational.
Well, because you don't talk about recreational alcohol, right? And it throws a very negative light on cannabis. You drink alcohol because maybe you want to relax, you want to have an evening with your wife, or it improves your senses a little bit. You don't drink too much. And cannabis can do the same thing, but you don't call that activity using recreational alcohol like it's a bad thing.
They're trying to categorize us.
So it's making cannabis recreational is bad. And then there's medicinal. Well, actually, the two are blurred.
Can I smoke recreational marijuana in California in a medicinal state?
No, you just can't enjoy it.
Right.
No, you can smoke it medicinally, but you just can't enjoy it.
Right.
That's illegal. All right. That's why we don't talk about it being recreational.
All right. So make sure you know yourself. Be a responsible patient. That's the most important thing out there. And listen to us to find out everything on cannabis news and education. Again, we are the NugLife Radio Show. We are a high level of education. And we are Medicinal Mike and hosted by Dr. Wayne Kelly from the Compassionate Harvest Medical Clinic. And we'll be right back
and
after these
more
words.
Enlightenment, stay tuned.
Stay tuned to be enlightened.
Hello, everybody. It's John Lovitz here, and You're listening to Medi Mike on the NugLife Radio. Yeah, that's the ticket, yeah. And he's going to talk about things other than cannabis. Yeah, that's the ticket, yeah. It stinks.
It's NugLife Radio, a higher level of education. Call 855-456-7625 or like our page on Facebook.com/NugLife to receive full benefits of the NugLife.
This generation rules the nation with pressure. Music happens to be the food of love. Pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side.
Pass the Dutchie over to me. This is Medicinal Mike here for the NugLife Radio Show, hosted also by Dr. Kelly, 30-year physician and cannabis expert for anything medical and knowledgeable in that world. We are a high level of education in this cannabis counterculture community. Couldn't be more of a tongue twister there, Dr. Kelly. We have a great show for you today. We have Joe Grumbine going to be calling in for us. He is the head of the Human Solutions, and that's an organization out there to help anybody in need that is having cannabis difficulties with your government or your local law or anybody else that is messing with your rights to be a cannabis smoker. Again, we are the Cannabis Education Show, NugLife Radio. You can listen to us on NugLifeRadio.com, or if you're in one of those lucky states, you could just turn on your AM/FM dial and we'll be right there for your ride home. Dr. Kelly also just gave us all the best educational advice right there. If you haven't listened to that last segment, make sure you go out there and listen to the archives on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. Next week, we're going to be doing call-ins. Doctor, you excited for that?
Oh, I'm excited, Mike.
All them people out there with all them crazy questions.
It will be good for sure. We'll have a good time.
Speaking of crazy cannabis people, we are very lucky to have calling in today. We're going to have one of the first, if not the first, performer to ever label themselves for cannabis awareness. That is the 420 comic, Jeffrey Peterson. Jeff, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, my buddy Medicinal Michael. Hey, Wayne, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how are you, Jeff?
We are
I'm fantastic. I'm standing here looking at the Vegas Strip from Las Vegas, man. I'm at a condo in Las Vegas chilling with my family, Vegas's #1 punk band, The Objects. So.
Oh, I'm a big fan of them. Make sure you tell them I said hi. I'm a Vegas resident. What are you doing out there in Vegas? You headlining something?
Yes, I've been on tour out here. I just headlined Rush Hour on Friday, and last night we were in White Hills, Arizona at Rosie's Den. That was a blast, a biker bar. You would have appreciated that, Mike.
No, I love it.
And tonight I am hosting over at Las Vegas Live inside Planet Hollywood.
Nice. One of the busiest people for cannabis that's out there.
And doing a lot for education. That's great, Jeff.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks. My kind of approach to this has always been about levity, because I've been a cannabis activist for now 23 years, and I've had the good fortune of kind of being like the court jester to the kings and the emperors, including Jack Hare and Eddie Lepp and the Cottonmouth Kings, and now Cheech and Chong. So it's been really cool to try to develop that style of comedy.
Why would you become, now it's easier in the comedian world to go mainstream, to do clean shows. Everybody knows that's where all the money is. Why become the pot comic?
To get free pot.
Nailed it.
To get free pot, first of all. No, the thing is, I was in a Christian metal band for many years on the Sunset Strip.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
Yeah, it is an oxymoron, but it was, it was actually something that was a popular genre, and we were the top headliners in our field. We were called Night Riot, and then after that, I got into a rap metal band right at the time that Korn and Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock were coming out, and that was called Justice League. So I've always had kind of a real strong, desire for justice and a fucking,
Way to drop the F word, Jeff. We appreciate you.
Well, especially with cannabis. So,
you just want to stick it to the man, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and I also want to use art to do it, because that's a great platform. And when I was in a metal band, these two metal bands, we sang about cannabis, and even in a Christian metal band, we sang about hemp. And that was 20 years ago, and you could see it on, you can go on YouTube and see that stuff that we did 20 years ago. So that led me to later when I had the balls to finally do comedy, which was in 2003. I said right from the beginning, I got to bring my life into it, and I got to bring this aspect. Cheech and Chong were my true inspiration, along with Richard Pryor and George Carlin, people like that. But Cheech and Chong were always my favorite. And interestingly enough, guys, the guy who kind of encouraged me to really be a pot comic and stick to it was George Lopez.
George Lopez, who is not a pot comic and making very much money for a living. Thanks, George. I feel like he might have been threatened by you and tried to throw you in.
Well, it was neat because at the time I knew George, 1993, 21 years ago. I was in a metal band, I was in a rock band, and I would see him at the supermarket in my neighborhood in Burbank. Now, he wasn't famous then, but he was a headlining comic, a suit and tie headlining comic.
Off
right?
topic, but on topic. What would he have in his grocery cart?
You know what the funny thing is? I never looked in his grocery cart, but he always looked in mine, and this is a true story. He would come up to me when he would see me in the supermarket all the time and go, "Hey, Jeff, you can buy other stuff besides cookies and cereal, bro." I mean, it was like, that's what he would say to me. And I told him, okay, so then he knew me as in a rock band. Well, 10 years later, in 2003, I started working as the doorman at the Ice House, and I said to George, "Hey, I'm doing comedy now, and I'm developing it as a pot comic." And he said to me, "You got to stick with that, man, because Cheech and Chong were my inspiration, man." And this was when Tommy Chong, they weren't really doing stuff, so it was kind of, I was just kind of like picking up the torch that got dropped, and I felt like.
How long have you been the 420 comic? How long have you been doing that now?
11 years now, since 2003.
And
Wow.
And you started the Dope Show, which I've had a pleasure and an absolute blast every time I get to perform in it. But you have like the cannabis awareness show on the West Coast that's been, for how many years now have you been doing this?
8 years, since 2006. Terry Joyce from Last Comic Standing and I, my dear friend and former comedy partner, she and I brought the first cannabis comedy show to the Ice House, America's oldest comedy club. We had it there for a year and a half. I mean, the roster of people who've been in our show, Mo Collins, Owen Benjamin, Ben Glebe, Adam Hunter, it's just Chris D'Elia. I mean, we've had so many people, over the years in our show, rock stars, and the crazy thing was we were at the Ice House for a year and a half, and the owner, Bob Fisher, came to me one day and said, "Why don't you take your pot comedy to Hollywood?"
Is there anywhere that you're not getting booked? Like, I would mean, doing a cannabis show.
I'm banned from the Ice House.
You just gave them all that free promotion, too. You'd think they'd lend you a bone or something.
I've been banned since 2008, and it was interesting because I was the door guy there. I got to become good friends with, like, Craig Robinson and Billy Gardell and a bunch of great headliners. Fraser Smith's one of my best friends. And so the crazy thing was he told me to take my pot comedy elsewhere and actually banned me. It really inspired me. I've taken it to the LA Convention Center, as you know, the San Bernardino Convention Center, the San Jose Convention Center. So, you know what? Thanks.
And these aren't little audiences. A normal comedy club's only going to give you maybe 50 to 100 people.
Right. And plus we've had it at the Comedy Store numerous times, the John Lovitz Comedy Club. I just consider this a groundbreaking variety comedy show. And the neat thing, too, is I've always been able to throw activists in there, Melissa Ballin, Timothy Tipton, people like Richard Marsala and Richard Eastman. I've always had, put in the education, because when people are laughing, they're thinking, and then you can just throw someone in there that's smart.
I have a question, Jeff.
Speaking of someone who's smart.
This is Wayne.
Hey, Wayne.
I can't imagine anything tougher than getting up on stage by yourself, doing comedy, particularly 420 comedy. I mean, where do you get testicles. Can I say testicles?
Yeah, that's a perfectly clean word.
Okay. Where do you get the testicles? How do you deal with your stage fright or anxiety? Is it just you're so used to it that you don't have any anymore?
Or loads of weed?
You know what?
That's what I was asking, actually.
That's a real good question. And Michael, you're a long-time performer in other areas of entertainment, being a stage hypnotist and the things you've done.
All kinds of crap.
An orator, yeah, hosting and stuff. You after a while, you just develop this confidence that like this is what I do. This is my job.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to fight audiences to let them know that. But it becomes something you enjoy because you have to turn on the charm, and you have to get people to like you, and that's really what comedy comes down to. And the neat thing is, you have to. I liken it to walking across a tightrope. If you walk across the tightrope and you almost fall, nobody's impressed because nobody's kind of funny. You're either funny or you're not funny. And that's the beauty of comedy. There's no middle ground.
Amen.
Well, I appreciate the advice, Jeff. I can use it myself. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I'm excited. I'm bringing out. You're going to meet him tomorrow. I'm bringing out my protege, Day Carter, tomorrow, and to the Marijuana-thon in North Hollywood that we're having 4 hours and 20 minutes of pot comedy.
So yeah, that's tomorrow night in North Hollywood. I'm happy to be performing in that show too.
No kidding! Congratulations,
you're one of the headliners.
Jeff Peterson's doing
Mike. Wow.
4 hours and 20 minutes of comedy. How many comics, Jeff?
I have over 30 comics right now.
For the diehard comics, you have got to see this.
Oh, I've got to go to that.
I mean, this is impressive because me and Ryan Talmo, this is the second one we've done, and to Ryan's credit, Ryan is not even a pot smoker at all, but he
looks like one.
He looks like one, and he believes that he's got no problem with it and believes that people should be able to use it. So the thing is, this show is the neat thing about it is it's the dopest show on earth's Marijuana-thon, and I have, my God, Fraser Smith's going to be there, Toby Hicks from BET, Don DeResta from Comedy Central, Mike Moratori, Haley Boyle. I've got comics coming out of the woodwork to be in this. Tanya Estrada. There's so many good names these are all headlining comics in LA, and so they dig the theme, and I make this a fun show. I'm going to have some roach coaches outside so stoners can't walk away and try to get food.
Jeff, where can we get a hold of you on the social network and everything? How do we reach you if we want to hear more from the 420 comic? Where do we go?
Well, I'm all over the Facebook. I got two Facebook pages, Jeffrey Peterson, and just look for the 420 comic, my fan page. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter, the 420 comic. Instagram, the 420 comic. And yeah, man, I'm just out there. I consider myself kind of, like I said, like a not just the jester of cannabis comedy, but like an ambassador, like from the West Coast, because in July I'll be part of the New Hampshire Freedom Rally and Hemp Fest, and I'm really excited about that. I'm from New England. I'm from Connecticut, and so to go back there and to do stuff like that and show them, what the West is doing, and now I live in, the number one cannabis state in the country, so.
So that's the 420 comic Jeff Peterson live on the NugLife Radio show, calling all the way in from Denver. We are the NugLifeRadio.com, the NugLife Radio show, a higher level of education and just a smidge of entertainment. We're Medicinal Mike and Dr. Kelly, and we're going to be right back after these messages. And listen up for Joe Grumbine from the Human Solutions.
It's NugLife Radio, a higher level of education. Call 855-456-7625 or like our page on Facebook.com/NugLife to receive full benefits of the NugLife.
I was gonna copyright my name, then I got high. I never thought I'd see fame, then I got high.
Welcome back. That's how I ended up here. We are the NugLife Radio show, NugLifeRadio.com, a high level of education. We are also the first syndicated radio show for cannabis education in the United States. So if you're one of our special cities, just tune into your AM, FM dial, and you will hear us. I am your host. I am 420 comic activist and marijuana enthusiast, Medicinal Mike. We're also here with 30-year addiction physician, cannabis doctor, Dr. Kelly. Dr. Kelly, we're still here.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing today?
We are rocking it. We're doing good. It's been a great show. We had Jeff Peterson, the 420 comic. Thank you very much, Jeff, for coming in. We've had all the top cannabis news stories. We've had Dr. Kelly with his medical knowledge. Today, we are learning stuff, Doc. We are learning. Coming in next, I want to bring in our next guest. Our next guest is the founder of the Human Solutions. That is one of the top organizations for helping cannabis and marijuana people who have been wronged or feel that they've been wronged and need help in it. Everybody, welcome to the show. Joe Grumbine. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm free today and enjoying the heck out of it.
Dude, it is great to have you in here. We're very happy. We've had many people from Human Solutions on, but we have now found the mecca of this organization. Can you tell us real quick, what is Human Solutions?
Well, the Human Solution International, which is actually the official name of the organization, is a group that's dedicated to educating and supporting people, primarily cannabis patients, but it's not limited to patients. People that have been wronged by our justice system, people that have stood up and be willing to fight, inmates that are locked up for cannabis crimes. Primarily, and we're dedicated towards ending prohibition. And I talk a lot about teach people about their rights as a citizen, as a patient, and sometimes, very importantly, as a juror. And we teach people about their rights of jury nullification as well.
That's the one thing, too. I've been around a lot of activist groups and organizations, Normal, ASA, and all those. I know Human Solution is much different, but your members seem to be highly educated. Are you feeding them something in the corn, or?
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing. I've been a pot smoker since probably about 1978. And,
I was one.
And it's a funny thing because a lot of people I work with are a lot younger than me, and they think they know a lot of stuff, and I just sort of laugh. But it's all good. I mean, I learned stuff from people that are younger than me as well. But here's the thing. We are aware that prohibition exists because of a policy of lies, deceit, and cover-ups.
Amen.
And the only real answer, the only real solution is the truth.
And as the Human Solution.
The truth, there's the solution, exactly. And so education really is the key to it all. And if people understood, number one, what their rights were, number two, the value of this plant, or number three, at very least, the lack of harm that this plant can cause, I think it would open up people outside of the movement to recognizing, that it's something that's not worth persecuting, and I think that's the key to it. Our movement by itself isn't the answer because we need the rest of the country and the rest of the world to stand up. We need to stand up too, but clearly
how big
public sentiment expresses that it's not okay to lock people up for pot anymore, we'll stop. It'll end.
How big is the Human Solutions right now? I've been around to quite a few states touring for comedy, and you guys seem to be everywhere.
Well, it's a funny thing. When something good catches on, it spreads like a little wildfire. And I've always said, be like the burning bunny and run through the bushes and catch it all on fire because, what we offer is something that's powerful and it's grassroots and it can't be stopped. We're currently in, I think, 43 states. We have almost 40 chapters right now, and we've actually grown international. We have a chapter up in Manitoba, Canada now, too.
And how long have you guys been around, actually? When did you first start the Human Solution?
We first started in 2008 during my first case when I reached out to all the organizations I can find and said, help, I got busted. I didn't think that was going to happen. Can you help me? And everybody says, I don't know.
Can you tell us about how you got busted? I know that was actually one of the bigger stories when I first got into this industry. Joe Grumbine, you had the biggest. It was like you were like Hulk Hogan in the 80s.
Oh God, yeah, tell me about it. Well, we started a collective, and I did everything I could to do it stay compliant. Consulted lawyers and all the activists and everybody. We did everything by the book as best as we knew how. And I got pulled over carrying the medicine from my collective in Riverside, about a mile from my house, and had all my paperwork and everything right. And the cop says, "Wow, you're a drug dealer. Going to have to take you in." I got arrested for the first time in my life at 42 years old. And that's when I woke up. That's when my activist came out and says, "Whoa, Nelly, this isn't okay."
Yeah, I'm not a 17-year-old kid you could push around.
Well, and I didn't do anything wrong, you see. And I'm locked up and I got charged with felonies. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I am not a felon. I never hurt anybody. And
what were the charges that they alleged upon you?
The first case, the charges were transportation, possession with intent to sell. And, I had to hire a lawyer for the first time in my life, a criminal lawyer. And I started gathering support. I got people to write letters on my behalf. I got people to come out to court. And we sort of, not that I created court support, but in my own world I did. I didn't know about it. Nobody else, knew anything about it that was in my world.
Well, support, I think, just came from you telling your story and people being sympathetic, saying, yeah, if this happened to me, that's not right.
Well, what I did is I started going to speak at other organizations' meetings and telling them what happened and asking for help. Hey, will you come out to court? I need people to stand by me because you're lopsided. When you go to court, everybody in that courtroom is paid by the government, and you're all by yourself. And most cases, especially criminal cases, there's never anybody there for the defendant. And so we change the odds. We turn it around and make it a home field advantage. And we observe the court. You learn a lot. I've sat in over 300 hearings. 150 of them were my own, but 150 of them were other people's. And every time I go to court, I learn something.
Tell me, Joe, what was the outcome of your case?
The very first case went on for a year, and ultimately, after going through 5 prosecutors, the judge dismissed my case in the interest of justice, citing that I was fully compliant of all California laws and ordered the return of my property. 5 weeks later, I was raided.
Congratulations.
And it all started over.
Did you expect the raid? I know sometimes out here dealing with the when the DEA is coming, you get that feeling in the air. Did you expect them to raid you out? And was it the DEA or the state police? Who raided you?
No, it was the state. And I didn't expect it, although, of course, every day I showed up to work, of course, heart pounding, are they going to hit me today? Because you don't ever know. But I was always worried about the feds, never worried about the state.
What did they set the bail at for something like that?
Well, my original bail was set at $240,000, and that's higher than the dude that killed Trayvon, and it's higher than the cops that killed Kelly Thomas. It's higher than many violent criminals.
It's higher than a basic assault charge. I know that right off the hand.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, my charges were 12 counts of selling a plant. That's what it boiled down to. And this went on. It was a nightmare. We went through a week-long preliminary hearing, and then they wouldn't allow me to testify. They wouldn't allow me to present any defense. And then we went to a trial. They denied my medical defense. We won that in the appellate court, which never happens. The judge didn't care. We started the trial, asked for a little bit of time because the appellate court gave us my defense back the day before trial was supposed to start. Judge says, nope, move forward. 18-day trial later, I was convicted, and it was a kangaroo court. We had an 18-day protest outside Long Beach Courthouse.
Who were the main supporters back then? Because I'm assuming the Human Solution hadn't been...
It was all Human Solution. I reached out to every other organization, and I just got a blank looks. And I don't want to be disparaging because I have good friends in lots of organizations, but at the time, I reached out to everybody. I mean, we had a whole network of people. We put in thousands of hours reaching out to people to come out, and it was all Human Solution.
How did this affect you as a person, Joe? It must have had a profound effect on your personal and emotional life.
Oh, it was one of the most harrowing, it didn't just affect me, my whole family. I mean, I've been married for 18 years. I've got kids and grandkids. My grandkids were out there protesting.
Nice.
And what it did was deepen my resolve. My stepmom was out there. I had 4 generations of protesters out at my trial.
How do you explain that to the children, Joe? Because they see Dad going to jail, and what they're taught is that anybody in jail is some kind of a criminal. How do you explain that to your children, that Daddy was just moving a plant around?
We explain it to them and it's a tough thing to get to them at a very young age, but that we have some problems with our government, and that some police are misinformed. They don't understand things, and that not everything that the law says is bad, and not everything that the law says is good is good. And it's a tough concept to get, but once they get to about 4th, 5th grade, you'd be surprised. They can understand. My kids understood that I grew and used and distributed cannabis, from the time they were in 5th, 6th grade. And I had to explain it to them in a way that made sense.
Joe, if there's somebody that wants to get involved, let's say, I don't mean to cut you off, we're running out of time,
sure.
And I want them to know if I at home want to get involved more with the Human Solutions, or I have something going on in my life that I need to maybe get some help with in that cannabis world, one, how do I get involved? And two, is it just cannabis?
Okay, well, number one, to reach us, we have a website, the-human-solution.org. Also, we're all over Facebook. Just look up the Human Solution. There's many of the chapters have their own pages, but we have one main page. And I'll give you a phone number. That's kind of our bat phone right now. It's 951-436-6312. And we're primarily cannabis cases, but there's been a few cases. Honestly, we're filing our 501c3 right now, and we're working with other prison reform organizations. And, this is a civil rights issue more than just a cannabis issue. And we're more getting involved with nonviolent offenses rather than just simply cannabis. And that'll be the future. Once we end prohibition, there's still going to be other nonviolent crimes that are being persecuted in ways they shouldn't be. So,
well, Joe, thank you so much for giving up your time on the NugLife Radio Show. We'd love to have you come back in again sometime and give us more. Again, if you're at home, you're listening to the NugLife Radio Show on NugLifeRadio.com, or go ahead and find us on your dial. I'm sure we're there on your AM, FM, the high level of education. So make sure you stay tuned. I'm Medicinal Mike here with Dr. Kelly from the Compassionate Harvest Medical Clinic. Bam! Compassionate Harvest Medical Clinic. That's Dr. Wayne Kelly. So keep on listening. We're at NugLifeRadio.com.
It's NugLife Radio, a higher level of education. Call 855-456-7625 or like our page on Facebook.com/NugLife to receive full benefits of the NugLife.
Come on.
And welcome back to the NugLife Radio Show, the high level of education. You can hear us on NugLifeRadio.com, or we are the first syndicated medical cannabis education show that exists out there. So find us on your AM, FM dial. If we're not there right now, we will be there soon. I am your host, Medicinal Michael, cannabis activist. Also hosted by Dr. Kelly, 30-year physician. What else do you do, Doc, just to refresh them?
Well, I also specialize in addiction medicine, so I work with a lot of people who have become addicted to opiates.
And opiates are just the bad part of all medication.
Oh, no. Opiates are Percocet, Norco, Vicodin, heroin, methadone. They're all the same drug.
Would you ever, just my personal question, would you ever recommend that kind of a drug over cannabis?
Well, opiates are very useful in two circumstances. For acute pain, let's say you have an abscess in your tooth, and for 1 to 3 days, using an opiate makes sense. Or if you're dying, if you're terminal, and long-term use in that case does make sense. It's the chronic use of opiates that has become an epidemic in this country and accounts for 120,000 deaths, as I said earlier today.
Well, that's an epidemic at this point.
It is an epidemic, and epidemic of prescription drugs, and that's where the real problem lies. It does not lie in the use of cannabis. Cannabis isn't killing people. It's the overuse of prescription drugs that are killing people in this country, as well as other substances, like 140,000 deaths from alcohol alone.
And what kind of people are you dealing with in your line as a cannabis doctor?
Every age, every profession, every walk of life, and basically every illness known to man. Since cannabis treats symptoms, whether your illness is cancer and you need something to help you maintain your weight, or whether it's MS, multiple sclerosis, and you're treating your muscle spasms, those are symptoms, or whether it's for anxiety and depression. So cannabis works in almost every illness known to some degree, for some people, that is. Nothing works for everyone.
Is there anything you wouldn't recommend cannabis for? Is there something out there that you're like, you know what, cannabis is not the right thing for you?
The overuse of cannabis, which is probably the only thing that I would... you can overuse cannabis, just like you can overuse any medication. If someone is perhaps using it continuously through the day without any real medical reason, that's the kind of person that I would discourage. But you asked me earlier a little bit about the type of people I see. I've seen lion tamers. I mean, can you imagine smoking a joint and putting your head in a lion's mouth?
That's the kind of job we don't recommend you medicate before.
That is a true story. I had a guy who was a nuclear reactor inspector, one of only 20 in the world. He did not drink alcohol or use sleeping pills. He had some trouble sleeping, so he used the most benign solution that kept him focused, and that was cannabis. And he inspects our nuclear reactors.
The only one with dreadlocks. That's how you know which one he is.
He's the only one with dreadlocks. That's right. Oh,
what's the common patient? Is there a common patient for cannabis?
There really isn't a common patient for cannabis. In fact, if there is any common denominator in the patients I see, I would say it's distrust of the medical profession or a desire to have control over one's own medications and usage without having to go to a doctor or using pharmaceuticals or depending on prescriptions. And a lot of the patients I see have been burned in various ways by the medical system. They're the walking wounded. They've been hurt by poor treatment.
I'm so used to being told what to take for what's wrong with me that I'm almost programmed to think if you're not taking, Xanax for some kind of a stress disorder, you're doing it wrong. And I'm sure a lot of people are the same way out there.
Well, pharmaceuticals are being rammed down our throat by the culture and the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, we're one of the only countries, if not, I think the only country that allows television advertising of pharmaceuticals, that we're bombarded with the message of take this, take that. And many people don't want to heed that message. They want to have control over what they take, and they can find that cannabis is a benign and simple way to control their own symptoms without going for more harmful solutions.
Is there ever going to be a day, you think, that we're going to see cannabis on TV being like, hey, try this Bubba Kush, Joe likes it,
I don't think so. But on the other hand, during the prohibition of alcohol, I thought there'd never be a day where you saw beer commercials on television. So who knows, right?
No, I think, once the money, I guess, gets behind it, that's where it's going to be at.
Yeah, the other thing about my patients is just the age range. My oldest patient is 91. I had a gentleman come in who was 90, and he told me... first time for a medical marijuana license.
Never smoked before?
No, he smoked for 74 years.
That's why he's 90.
Every day. And he looked pretty spry, I'll tell you that. And I asked him, okay, glad to do it for you, sir. It's an honor. You obviously, 90,
you're the
90
one.
years old. You've got some medical problem. You've got arthritis and a whole list of things. But why are you doing it? Why now at 90? Why this 74 years?
To get the chicks, doctor, to get the chicks.
He said, I quote, I just want to be legal before I die.
Oh, that's God bless his soul, as they say. That's fantastic. Who's the youngest? What's the youngest patient you have?
Well, I'm very reluctant to do people between 8 and never do anyone under 18. I'm reluctant to do 18 to 21. They have to do recommendations for them. They have to have a good reason, though many younger people do. I mean, young people suffer from acute anxiety, depression, insomnia, just like older groups. Or real serious physical problems like seizures and epilepsy. So I have a lot of epileptic patients. Mike, you yourself have seizures, I've heard.
Yeah. Not right now, just the hiccups. I have acute narcolepsy, which it appears for every case and form, it is a seizure. I don't have epilepsy, but I'm one of them percentages that if you're staring at the video game for too long or poker machines in a casino or any kind of fluorescent lighting, I will go into seizure, absolutely.
So you find cannabis controls that for you to some degree?
Absolutely. They recommended me to take a pharmaceutical. It started with an L. I don't know if you know. It's for treating seizures. But they told me that if I stop taking it, I will have seizures. Mm-hmm. So I never took it in the first place because, I've had 10, which is, it's a lot of seizures, I guess, for seizure people. But some of people have 10 seizures a day. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel like it's as bad. But with the marijuana... I smoked before, but I really kicked it into high gear. And I haven't had a seizure in 7 years.
That's great. And I have heard that story many times. I've heard people who are having 10 petit mal seizures a day go down to 1 or 2 a week using cannabis. So I have certainly no doubt that it helps in that illness as well as so many others. And you asked me, talking about the age of patients, I've also had a 90-year-old patient who never smoked. And finally decided, after being recommended by his cohorts, his other people that he were 80 and 90 years old, to try it. He tried it for his severe arthritis and told me, I quote, "I went out and mowed my lawn for the first time." In probably 20 years.
So there's a group out there of, these 80 to 100-year-old guys, big pot circle of just senior citizens.
There is no common denominator, really, among my patient population, except the desire perhaps to have control over their own health care and not be dependent on the pharmaceutical industry, on prescriptions on doctors, or who have been deeply hurt by them. And, of course, up until recently, well, it's still this way, as so many people did not have insurance, don't have insurance, and they can't afford to go to a doctor for every little thing. So they treat their migraine headaches with cannabis and tension headaches and so forth.
So, Dr. Kelly, we got to thank you again. Dr. Kelly, one of the new hosts of the NugLife Radio show, he has given us legitimacy in what we're doing, and now we know that if we're giving you wrong information, we have somebody here to make sure that it's the correct information going out there. If you're listening to us now, you are listening to the NugLife Radio show, which can be archived on NugLifeRadio.com, or check your AM/FM listing, because I'm sure we're there somewhere. So make sure next week you're doing call-ins. You can call in, ask the doctor anything you want to know. That is what he's here for, to help you. We want to thank Joe Grumbine from the Human Solutions and the 420 Comic Jeff Peterson for calling in. Stay tuned for next week. Again, this is Medicinal Michael and Dr. Kelly. Wishing you a great day.
Don't sue me.